Hey all, this is Stewart. Here for a little conversation with one of my all-time heroes, Mary Virginia Swanson, who we call Swanny. Um, Let me just say we're talking about fine art books, photography books, we're talking about publishing, we're talking about licensing, and she is kind of the expert in the country. And so I think this is going to be really cool. I mean, Swanee has, and you could fill us in, but you're a curator, you're a lecturer, you're an educator, you're a publisher, you're an advocate for photographers everywhere. And I think
Yeah,
that's how I first met you, and that's what has kept me you in my hero category.
thank you. Thank
So,
you. And it's been a pleasure to work with you all these years and watch your work evolve and the beautiful books that you've done and
well,
great.
I've
Yeah.
tried, but it's as you know, it's a challenge. And actually, this book, and I'm not jumping ahead of ourselves, but Swanee has published a book called is it called Publishing Your?
It's always been publisher photography book.
There you
This
go.
is the third edition. It started as a column for the Photo Eye bookstore, which we all
Yeah,
know and love, 30 years and growing. And when my co-author Darius Himes was working at Photo Eye during his graduate years in Santa Fe, they decided to do a magazine. And he called and he said, "Hey, Swanee, let's do a column together about publishing your photography book." And this was in the early 2000s. And the column ran for 3 years. It was a
wow.
quarterly. So we did 12 episodes, so to speak, in print, only in print, and it ended with case studies. So it was like having people understand what the possibilities were. We knew that we were kind of writing an outline for a book. In the meantime, Darius went to work founding Radius, and our lives were busy. I was in New York, but we kind of knew one day it would be a book. And two important things happened that made us go, okay, now's the time. Number one, Blurb was founded. So
All right.
all of
Okay.
a sudden, everybody could make a book. And number two, the collectible book market was totally on the rise. Andrew Roth's Book of 101 Books, the Martin Parr, Jerry Badger series was starting,
Right.
really looking in a kind of academic and curatorial way at photo books. So we're like, okay, this is the time. We took our column, we updated the case studies, we updated everything, of course. We added interviews with Eileen Gittins, who was the founder of Blurb, Dan Milner, who was a complete advocate and still is for self-publishing your books, and
Right.
an interview with Dale Kaplan from Swan Galleries in New York, which was the big auction house, the first to do. It's the first place I ever held Robert Frank's Les Américains in my hand. The French,
Right. Right.
they
Yeah.
were the place for all of that. So we did our first edition with Princeton Architectural Press, a great design publisher, 2011. They sold out. They called and said, let's update, we'll reprint. So our second edition was 2014. Then
Okay.
by then Darius had was working at Frankel. Now he's at Christie's running the international program for photography there. And so busy, busy, busy. Time goes by. The photo book world explodes.
Okay. Whoa. You're getting way ahead of us. I
Okay.
mean, I know you could just go on and talk about like with a straight monologue, but I'm gonna temper the
Intercept.
conversation a
Yeah.
bit. So, okay, two things.
Okay.
One, I've known you since I think around 2007, 2008, somewhere back there.
Yeah.
It's the first time, and I think we you consulted for me on my first book, and I knew about you before that. That's before even your fame totally exploded. But so. Um, the thing that, and then even 2 weeks ago when we first talked, you kind of blew my mind again when you sent me a link to your podcast, which we will include here,
Yeah.
that
The
you
B and
did
H
with Rick Smolin about a day in the
hero.
life series.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, my brain was about to explode knowing when those books came out and what they did back then even. And I thought all
Exactly.
those trends were kind of more au courant, but no, that goes way back.
Oh my gosh. And Rick really, he birthed those and really was not a publisher, but he built this model of support.
Right.
that we talk about in the podcast that is a great model for everyone.
Oh,
You know,
totally. It's a must listen to.
yeah, it's
I'm just gonna
really,
say that. Yeah.
yeah, it's all about subject
Right. Right.
and who's interested in your subject. That's the secret to everything, really.
Okay.
That's
So
the
so
bumper
now,
sticker that I want to make. Think subject.
okay. So my first question for you and why I reached out to you a couple weeks ago is your where you sit and where I sit are a little bit different in our day-to-day lives. And my question was, are fine art photo books still relevant?
And I
And you
say, yeah,
answered,
yes. Yes. I think in today's world where so much is kind of piecemeal, we see an image here, someone buys one print from a series, it leaves the nest.
right,
All of that is a challenge to me to really telling the whole story. And that's the beauty of photo books is that you can tell the whole story. Not only
okay,
that, but what we've learned over the years and, looking back at classic artist books, truly as the sort of origin story,
right,
we first could print on different materials. Things changed for us in how we think about bookmaking, I think.
right,
We weren't folding gelatin silver prints in half and stitching a seam. It wasn't happening. Books weren't being made like that. Now, when we look at books, there's multiple papers, there's multiple
right.
sizes within. The designers of today's photo books have the opportunity, I believe, to really amplify your story in the size and how it feels and what the materials are. And are we opening things up? Are we physically involved in the choices that we make to open a gatefold, for example, or the
Right.
vellum giving a hint of something ahead or a sense of memory? And I just think that telling your story your full story in the book form is the greatest achievement that you can have to put in someone's hand, the entire story.
I agree. Now, is there jumping way ahead to the commerce side? Are people still buying books though?
People are buying books. The cultural side of books, horses, dogs, gardens, the works,
Right,
celebrities, that world is very big. That's the Fiden and Taschen and all.
right.
We going to be able to tell our story to those publishers? Probably not. It's more personality based and
Okay,
subject based. I was looking hard at the transition of Monticelli, that lovely brand Monticelli had
right.
been acquired by Fiden, and watching that transition carefully and the way
Uh-huh.
that they've been branding the brilliant Sig Harvey. She's done
Right.
two books with Monticelli, but the second one was completely in kind of the Fiden mode now.
Okay.
Published, it says Fiden, and she's branded with Annie Leibovitz in that within the House of Fiden as
Right.
individual artists that are making amazing things in the book form.
So in your quick description, how would you define the Fiden approach?
I think they refer to themselves as culture and lifestyle. I wish I had
Okay.
that on the website. I'll add that link when we
Okay.
build our link list
Sure.
so all of you can see that how a brand speaks to the public. What's their tagline?
Right, right,
Very interesting. And it's very different. And Fiden actually now sells the regular edition, the limited edition. There's even what's called a luxury edition of the new Annie
right.
Leibovitz book. It's a whole different thing. The Sig Harvey had prints with the
Okay.
first one, Blue
Okay.
Violet, and with this one. So it's a,
Okay.
it's a very interesting thing to look at that high end,
Right.
how that's being positioned for their audience versus
Right.
the small press and the art book world that we're engaged in.
I got you.
Who do they speak to? Pardon me. And how do they sell and where do they sell? So
Right.
that's a
So
different
so
path.
and one thing you were talking about different papers and different, sizes and so on and so forth. I mean, how much of that traditionally is with the artist versus say the designer that you decide to work with on it?
Well, I always feel people should seek professional help in the design department
Exactly, exactly.
without any question. I mean, eh, I love that, for example, on the Perry Photo Aperture Shortlist Awards, they list the designer.
Right.
Not everybody
And,
does, but
and they
it's something
should.
again, of course, it's something again that helps you learn which brand is the right brand for you.
Right.
We
Right.
have this amazing network of photo book fairs and art book fairs too, I should say. Very kind of different and now a kind of merging of the photo book
Right.
and the art book fairs depending upon the brand. I'm about to go to the Codex Fair in Oakland, which is the Codex
Okay.
Foundation's. It's the 10th year of their fair that is fine books, rare books, the handmade. They
Okay.
call it
Interesting.
a book art fair. And there's three brands that will be there, if I can remember this correctly, that we know from the photo book world that they're finely crafted, many cases handmade or limited.
Right.
It's DATS Press, of course, from Korea,
Right.
who did the Korean language edition of our book, which is stunning. There's Dust Collective out of Massachusetts, and they have done all handmade until about 2 years ago and started doing smaller editions. Their new Amani Willett book is getting a ton of press, and they did 300. That's it.
Okay. Wow. That's it.
300. That's it. And then the third is a publisher that's been with that fair for years because it's more of the fine art press. It's called
Right.
Pond's Press, and they've done exquisite volumes with 2 volumes with SIG, 40 copies each total done.
Jeez.
And they're in libraries and they're in private collections that will go to libraries. We can talk about that too.
Yeah, because I definitely want to talk about when you think about a book, say with 40 copies, especially with done through a publisher, like who's funding that and how are they even recouping their investment, or are they?
Well, they're uniquely beautiful and strategically created volumes. So,
Okay.
for example, Sig's most recent book for Two Ponds Press is called Cake. And what they decided to do was give the book block to 4 different binders
Okay.
who designed and built the binding for the same book block.
Wow.
And they're
Wow.
generationally different. And it's a stunning set of 10, 10, 10, and 10.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
Very cool. So, and the book before that they did was an all woman's team, woman designer, woman typographer,
Uh-huh.
woman printer, woman binder. The afterword was by Kat Stefko, who's the art librarian curator of the collection at Bowdoin College in their special
Okay.
collections
Oh,
library.
wow.
So, I mean, they're strategic as can be, Two Ponds Press.
Yeah.
And they're just about to release a piece with the Caponegros with
Okay.
Paul and his dad's work.
Right, right.
Chris Tennyson just released a piece. So they're starting to focus more on photography. They all
Right.
happen to live in the Rockport area in Rockport, Maine, near Maine Photo
Okay.
Workshops. But that's a really interesting world. And that's the world that I'm going to learn more about at Codex this year. Binding
Okay. How so?
boxes. Well, because the exhibitors are primarily either artists at their tables with
Uh-huh.
books that they've made
Oh,
themselves.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. Binders, paper manufacturers, and people like Tupons that create these objects by bringing in the experts that are related to that, either that topic or that piece of literature that they're making
Wow.
learn.
Okay.
It's going to be, for me, that's the learning piece that I want right now, because I've been, partly because of being friends since college with Susan K. Grant, a mutual
Right.
friend of ours, who's been making handmade books for years and years, and
Right.
hearing about this other world and going with her to Special Collections Library.
Okay.
My
Okay.
favorite visits was actually to the curatorial library at Amon Carter. That was an amazing experience to
Oh, I
go.
bet next time you go, can I come? I want
Yeah,
to come.
yeah. I
That's
mean, we
down
were
the
able to
street.
see like the book dummies and the maquettes for like the Enduring Navajo, Laura Gilpin. I mean,
Yeah.
amazing pieces that we are able to see. So I'm very interested in the evolution of an idea in the book form
Right.
and how artists choose to manifest their ideas in the book form.
Okay. So on that note, so far we've kind of touched on you have an idea, you have a body of work.
Right.
A designer is important, a publisher is important, or so many times I hear somebody taking their body of work to multiple publishers, and even if they get some success in somebody saying they're interested in doing their book, um, uh, sometimes they say, okay, yeah, we could do it in 6 years, or we could do it and it's going to cost you X amount of dollars. And so, what is the viability of like a self-published book, even?
Okay. So one of the questions I ask everybody is, what's the role of the book in your career right now? Like, what do you
Right,
really need? And one of my favorite examples I show in my lectures are pieces that were created in the book form. There might be pamphlets, might be a handmade, hand-bound small sampler, if you will,
right, right,
for a promo piece for a place like PhotoFest. Begin
right.
to put the work together, edit sequence as you choose, and have something. Like start now to start making books.
Got
If
you.
so often people, another favorite kind of thing of mine is don't rush to the monograph. You will learn so much
Yeah,
about yourself, about the work, most importantly, if you slow down and make some smaller pieces first, and then feel like you know the work, you know how you want to sequence it, then step forward into it. But a lot of the publishers are doing really small runs. So let's talk about the small run. Small run of 300, for example.
right, right,
That is something that if you're just getting your work out, and you can afford to even self-publish 300, how many would
right.
go to curators? How many would go to photo editors? Many people like I watched Matt Eich over the years make small books printed by Conveyor, printed by the firm in Chaska, Minnesota, Smart Press,
Uh-huh.
Linco in New York for newsprint. A newspaper club in England, every size of newsprint you can imagine now. Well, those pieces, depending on how lavish you want it, you can probably afford, if you think about it for your marketing budget and something that you're going to send out to people, is
Right.
more of it. So maybe 25% of what you make goes out as a promo piece, and the other 75% can land on your website for sale. Possibly.
Sure.
Rickson might take it at Photo Eye. But anytime
Yeah.
you add another person to the mix, they're taking a piece of the pie. So
Sure,
a
sure.
lot of people that really do want to have some of their books in a bookstore, get in their online catalog, etc., for the beginning of building the brand.
Got you. Which brings me to what I should have asked first. What what role does a book play in an artist's career?
That's the whole question. Is it, and I kind of equate it to, is it a promo piece? Is it, or all the way through to like, is the body of work complete and it's time to put it out? There's a lot in between that you could do.
Sure, sure,
And
sure.
the more of that you fuss with, and the more, I mean, take workshops on building a book and binding, and just get your hands on the material.
Well, like your workshop was great. So it'll be in the link though. If you want a all-encompassing workshop, it's the one you put on.
Well, and I have to say, with my own work, I took my first bookmaking class with a body of work with Susan K. Grant and learned so much. And we ended up with our first dummy in the end. And it's
Wow.
a very rough thing, but it changes your experience and your relationship to your work when you
Right.
start to think about the writing and all, and how
Right.
to edit and sequence, and what's the audience going to expect? How does it feel in your hands? All of it.
Sure. Sure.
It's if you're really interested in it, I think it's a great experience. You can do a lot of that online as well. In person, of course, is great because you have someone right there to help you. But
Right.
um, I
But
think,
one thing I will add when I worked with Helmut Newton, he stressed, he said, you have to do books, but you will make no money ever doing books. Is
yeah.
that true
Well,
still? That's my experience.
if your subject is culturally of interest, you'll have a bigger publisher, and there may actually be some royalties.
Got you. Got you.
One of the big things in revenue that's changed is that publishers used to look at the net or sorry, used to look at the gross price, like of the sticker price, you
Uh-huh.
get a certain percent of what the sales price was. Now, most publishers, vast majority, work off of net. They take
Right.
all of the expenses first, they take all the returns, which is a terrible problem in publishing. Books get manhandled at the bookstore and then they can't sell them, so the bookstore sends them back to
Right.
who also can't sell them, so they're wasted essentially. It's a
Yeah.
problem. Um, so all of those expenses come up with generally almost nothing. So,
Sure, sure.
are you going to get a royalty and is it based on gross or net is a huge thing. Second thing
Right.
that really changed is materials are more expensive. Printing is more expensive.
Right.
Shipping goes up constantly. We have the tariff challenges.
Right.
Making money in the tangible form from this object is very different than you realizing I've been able to sell some prints. I'm going to have an exhibition, all because
Right.
of the book. I've sent it to the editors at Bloomberg or the New York Times Magazine. I'm getting assignments. That's getting
Right.
licensed. I mean, it's part of the ecosystem
Sure.
of getting your work out if you look at it that way. I mean, when someone comes to me and says, I just printed 1,000 copies of my book, what do I do now? That's not my favorite challenge, you know. I wish that had been thought about long before, not just
Sure.
really to amplify the work in the book form, but also thinking about who the audience is and
Yeah.
it's getting scheduled to speak at a conference where people, one of the things I ask in the workbook for this book is like, who is the audience for your work? Do they gather? Is there a
Nice.
national
Yeah.
conference annually with that group of people that are interested in climate change or whatever your subject is?
Right.
You
Well, I
know?
think that's why your book, like so many people, including myself, are very impetuous and why reading your book in advance, which it wasn't out when I did my first book, is so important because these are questions that one needs to ask. And then you need to show me your coffee mug here. Here, lift up
Oh
your
yeah,
coffee
yeah.
mug.
This is from the Deadbeat publishers in LA that I
Here,
love.
hold it closer. There. Oh, yeah, and
Okay,
let's see
that's
what does it
Deadbeat.
say? There
This
you go.
no money in
But
photo books. Yeah,
but
yeah.
but what
But
it does for your career is
yes,
exponential. You
I
can't
mean,
even.
yes, that also begs the concept that you have a sense of what you want in your career, that you're on a
Good
path,
point. Good
you
point.
know, and not everybody's thinking about what path they want to be on. I mean, generally speaking, I think people that work more conceptually in their work want the fine art market.
Right.
Generally speaking, the people that are doing extraordinary storytelling on subjects from social justice to climate change to you name it, they are on a path to tell as many people as possible that's an issue that's urgent. So
Right.
they,
Okay.
they tend to wish to have the work in as many broad platforms as possible. And
Right.
that's where we see on Instagram someone's posting and that this was commissioned by Bloomberg or this ran in the Washington Post or this and this.
Right.
So I think that begs always understanding your audience and
Well,
what's
also, I mean, and the rare book, I'm not, it's not rare, but the books that address a multitude of these things at the same time, like, your artistic endeavor, your message you're trying to get across. I
yeah.
mean, those are the ones that really score, right?
Yes, and I have to say for myself, I'm most interested and I find myself buying more books that I learn about the work deeply presented
Right.
in an interesting and compelling way in the writing that goes with it, but that I also learn a bit about the practice of that artist. And that doesn't always happen. And I don't mean just literally like an essay in the back by the artist or a illustrated chronology of their work up to this time or an
R-
exhibition catalog, which should have those pieces in it. But I
Correct.
love to learn more about the individual that made the book. And that
Okay.
might be, I mean, I'm going to pull a book right now. So
Okay. You
hold
go pull a book.
on. Okay.
Go for it, Swanny.
So, so I want to show you a book that's a bit of a beast. It's giant and it's by Victoria Sambunaris. And this is her second book of this scale and of this 10, each one was a 10-year journey through the landscape with her 5x7 camera.
Wow.
The book block, can you see how this is bound?
I do see it. Yeah.
It's different, right? It doesn't look like what we normally see. This is by Radius Books, by the way. This
Okay.
released this year. So if you look at it, there's the book
Interesting.
block taped. So its
Yeah.
construction is sturdy. And then
Right.
we have three different books that are in a pocket folder.
Wow.
So this is where we really, and I should say, let me just show you.
So that is, in essence, that's a piece of art in and of itself.
Well, it's celebrating the grand landscapes that are being made in a classic kind of way.
Sure.
Right? But in the back, we have three other pieces.
Okay.
So the first one is a pamphlet that is actually a facsimile inside, a full
Okay.
facsimile. And what it says on the back is this copy of Herman Diaz's In the Distance contains Victoria Sambinaris's notes, passages she highlighted, and her personal responses to the text. She read the book while on a recent trip and found herself connecting with many parts of the story in real time while on the road. So we get it, we literally like we're stepping into her desk and into her studio and seeing her notes and
Oh,
highlighting
wow.
things
That's
through.
really cool.
So it's really cool. And there's a postcard that was stuck in. Then this second piece is contact sheets, doubled up,
Wow.
both sides, like 10 or 12 of them. The big, big beast.
Okay, so she and whomever published it and paid for it,
Radius.
I mean, there's a huge investment in these multitude of pieces
Right.
in that book. So what does that book retail for?
70, I think, signed.
Okay.
Might be
So okay.
75 signed.
Okay.
And then there's a third book of
Right.
she's organized things that she was drawn to in different parts of the trip. Like these were ships. So she also kind of did a little bit of an index, a
Wow.
subject search, if you will, which you and I talk about a lot.
Right. Yeah.
Ships and then some catalogs of other things that she found related. An essay is in here with someone writing about the work. And then this says 18-page booklet published by ASMR 4, edition of 200. This was an earlier piece that she found. So it's again elements that influence her work and
But she
really
put into the book.
what she's put into the book. Another way that Radius has been able to bring us into a practice. This is a
Uh-huh.
book by Stephanie Sihuko, who's
Uh-huh.
is in archives. And
Okay.
David, this is like we're looking at a box. It's a
Oh
facsimile
yeah,
of
cool.
a
Yeah,
box,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And we're in the archive with the index. The top says artwork and the second says texts.
Nice.
Because it's in archives, this is the way it's built, and each of
That's
these is like
cool.
a file tab. Like you're in the archive, and there are sections in the book where literally we are, let me show you one. Bear with me, everybody. Okay, so we're in this file, and here's the front of the file with like the worn and torn cover.
Right, right.
And the way that Radius printed it, we see we're like in the file. There's smaller sizes of things.
Oh wow.
We're really
That's
having the
crazy.
experience of being in the file.
That's pretty
So
cool. Now
yeah,
is the designer is David Chicky, is that his name? The
yeah, he's
designer?
one of the four founders, and he continues on as the creative director and does
Okay.
all the design work. But I
Oh,
mean,
he does do the design. Yes.
does
Okay.
all the design. So
Super
I mean,
talented.
super talented. But I love that we are in the artist practice.
Right. Okay, so bringing it again back to reality a little bit because there's the that's a piece of art, no question. You
Yeah,
know, is there a sweet spot for an artist? Like when do economics come into play when you're talking to somebody about how much a book will cost? Does it matter? Do people care if it's an $80 book or a $40 book? Like, is there more up?
$20 newsprint piece,
Okay, or a $20 newsprint print.
which I love also.
Is there a price point where like a sweet spot if somebody is trying to think ahead to say, oh, it would be great if we could sell some of these. Is there a sweet spot for prices?
You know, I don't buy many books that are $70 every year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So oftentimes people will come to me and they'll say, this is the work and this is how I see it in the book form. And they're describing everything. And I want foil stamping on the cover and I want gold headbands and I want, the end
Exactly.
papers to be this and that. And the cash register is kind of going in my head. And I look at them and I go, that is probably a $125 book. How many books this year have you bought that are $125
And
books?
that's fair. That's
And
totally
that's
fair.
fair, but that's a problem. For a lot of people, their first books that they're doing are newsprint. And it doesn't have to be, super thin and folded. You can
Right.
use newsprint on a heavier white stock that's
Uh-huh.
still affordable, but reads more like a magazine. No
Got you.
fold. Louis Palou on his website, which I'll put this link in again, has this section called Concept Newspapers. And he strategically creates these newspapers. People like David Allen Harvey have been doing the same kind of thing where they're unbound and they can come apart and become
Right.
stories on the wall, or
Oh,
we
cool.
pasted on the sides of buildings. Or one of my favorites of Louis is Mira Mexico, and he has a section on the concept newspapers again about installations, how people have used them,
Oh,
and
interesting.
yeah, very
That's
interesting.
cool.
Those
That's
are
really cool.
cheap. Those are cheap, and
Okay.
and for Louis, he wanted the most amount of people to see it. These are like career moments,
Right.
the
Okay.
the
Fair.
bigger pieces that I
Sure.
showed you.
Sure. Sure.
And
Sure.
some of the pieces that Matt Eich, for example, has been doing for years are 25, $35, and and
Okay.
and he makes them often, so we're following his
So
practice.
there's a gamut. Okay. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to ask you something. And now for those of you listening who don't know, like way back in the day, there was a licensing agency called Swanstock, which was the envy of every photographer to be in Swanstock. And you're looking at the swan right here. And the picture is right over her,
Yeah.
at least the camera right shoulder.
I was so
Um,
excited that Keith Carter let me
so,
use that
so I
photo.
understand. I mean, I understand how that all kind of transpired, and you moved on from that. Is licensing still viable for a photographer, whether in the commercial sense or in the fine arts sense? More importantly,
Well,
does that play a role, say, in the fine art in the whole process? Can it play a role?
of course, my feeling has always been there's a tip of the iceberg. The best designers at the top will want the best work, and they're willing to pay for it. And that's what we did for all those years, was we worked with the best designers who
Hmm.
respected the work, who loved that the artists were involved in making the decisions, and
Okay.
it was not stock.
Right.
Generations had come to know it. Work that was just created as a chance for people to kind of peruse a catalog,
Right. Right.
as the world, searches now online for images. Um,
But
I
content did get licensed, right?
totally,
Yeah.
for me, it was, if I can step back a bit, for me, it was my aha moment was having a background in museum and fine art and gallery and being hired by Magnum to come into their New York office and develop books and exhibition projects from their archive. So my version of an archive in my head was very different than what I walked into. And I
Right.
walked
Right.
into kind of a loft-like building where there was a sea of four-drawer filing cabinets around a central area with big tables, and the photo editors would come in, the art directors would come in, the graphic designers would come in and work with one of the library people to go through the files to find what they were looking for.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, but when the first time I opened up a file drawer there, and there were standard tabs, this is the analog era, of course, and the tabs were like, south of France or dogs or sibling rivalry, metaphors, not a single name of a photographer. And Bruce
Interesting.
Davidson came over. I'll never forget this. He said, Swanny, this is how we've been making a living all these years. we make our work, we give it to the librarians, they order prints and they go in all these different files and hopefully get used, and that's how we continue to do what we do. Another thing in that era was whenever a photographer had an assignment anywhere, they always came in to talk to Liz Gallen, who was the library director, and said, "I've got a job in Singapore. What do you need?" And she'd say, "We need an updated skyline. We need this. We need the presence of
Got you.
and made products there, whatever it was." That she knew what we weren't able to sell because we didn't have the pictures for it. So
Got
that's
you.
a successful kind of combination. The photographers that were more mindful of asking before they went somewhere likely made more money from it. But the
Okay.
example I used to you earlier this morning was you would find Elliot Irwin in the dogs file, of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
but he was not a brand of his own stature at that point to know that. So the
Right.
clients weren't saying, "We are looking for an Elliot Irwin." But I promise you, by the end of Swanstock, I would go and have meetings with people and bring amazing fine prints and the whole nine yards to show them. And I remember clients looking at each other around the board table that we were meeting
Yeah.
at, and they go, this feels like maybe a Linda Connor or a Mark Klett picture. And it just
Yeah.
warmed my heart because we always sent the submissions by artist. Our
Okay. Yeah.
files were by artist, always, because we knew the bodies of work that were going on for years that
Sure.
we're
Sure.
working on. They're deep passion projects. And
Yeah.
that's what we were trying to place.
Right. Right.
So it was a beautiful thing.
Interesting.
And so it's true that many of the clients have smaller budgets today.
Uh-huh.
We can understand that when all we have to do is like turn on a sporting match on TV or an NBA game or whatever, and they're blasting pictures on the floors, and budgets for it's long gone are the days of a really predictable set of magazines that kind of product would be listed in, and print ads. Print
Right.
The number of different platforms that same budget has to be spent on is completely different in today's
Okay.
world. So the
Right.
budgets are less. Um, they have less time, unless it's a passion project maybe it's a nonprofit project of an ad agency or one of their clients that supports, Boys and Girls Clubs or whatever, and they'll even hire a photographer to make pictures. And
Right.
overall, it's a faster world, it's a lower budget world, but I still think the top of the pyramid want better work and will look for it and wait for it and work with it closely with the artist.
Cool.
It's not as frequent as in
Yeah.
advertising boom years when, which
Right.
there were years in the 60s and 70s when annual reports were incredibly creative. And that's
Yeah.
how a lot of the Magnum photographers really made their money, a lot of the founding and next gen at that
But like Magnum is still around, and
time. Of course.
they if you look at them and you look at the changes we've all seen with the photo agencies and publishers and magazines and stuff like that, they have evolved whatever they've done, and I'm not totally inside on everything they've done, but whatever they've done, they've continued to evolve and they've survived. So what is the word? Survive and thrive, right?
Well, exactly. Every company, whatever your product or your service is, you've had to. You've had to stay alive. You have
Right.
to always stay a step ahead. No
Right.
question about it. The thing that I think is important for photographers to realize is some of the basics in your practices, some of your business principles, your archive storage, all of those things have to be maintained as
Right.
as the access and the usage is changing. And the biggest thing of all that's changed to me is search.
Right.
How we think about, when I would first teach social media and Instagram, for me, it's like understanding that hashtags are keywords in the earlier search generation.
Right.
That hashtags should be about drawing the subject to you. For me, it's never been about just being followed. It's been about being found. And that to me is dependent upon you also from the very beginning, thinking about the audience for that project. And what
Okay, so now, but are hashtags still relevant? Are they still
I think they're incredibly relevant. And for
okay?
example, when you have a deeper body of work, a project or a series, or it becomes
Hmm.
a book, or it becomes an exhibition. I really believe that having that defining form, if you will, at the
Uh-huh.
end of the hashtag on the project tells a photo researcher this has depth. It's not
They're
random.
defining form like what do you mean? Like the
Like
title
it's
of
an
the body of
exhibition
work?
or it's a book.
Oh, I got
Or
you.
it's
I
a
got you.
some people use series until it's more completed and then they call it a project, whatever
I
your
got you. I got you.
whichever thing is that you're
Right,
working
right,
on. But there's an audience for everything. So if it's climate change, if it's social justice, as I mentioned those two before,
right,
giant categories.
right,
Well, if you just hashtag climate change or social justice, there'll be millions and millions of pictures in that
right,
hashtag.
right.
The chances of being found are really slim.
So
So to me,
what's the key?
well, to me, when you add that ending vocabulary, series, project, book, exhibition, and then accordingly, every hashtag, every image that you post from that series, project, exhibition, book
Sure.
gets that hashtag, you're
Bam, right.
building a collection of images in your Instagram.
Okay.
Oh, I'm always excited when I see an image that I love and I see that there's a hashtag for that project and I click on it. And it might be everything from out making the work to editing and sequencing to ultimately being on press or hanging. I
Okay.
mean, it's like a behind the scenes collection.
So to our people listening, is it possible to go back to what had been previously posted and to add
Oh,
hashtags?
yes.
And you
The
do that in
problem
the comments, right?
Well, I like it right in the post personally because you
Oh,
never know
okay.
that people are going to click in the comments. The problem that we have, the unknown that we have right now is, as all of you I'm sure know, in the last couple of weeks especially, Instagram is changing their search and the number of hashtags that you're allowed to do. And my understanding is that they're doing that to make way for AI to come in and do the search, to not have
Ah,
human search. I think well, we'll have to double check at the time of this posting, but it was under 10 that they were going to allow you to use and
right.
probably get it down to 3 before we know it. Those are have to be very strategic. If your post is about your gratitude for someone that gave you an assignment, they need to be tagged, but the hashtag for you and the projects can still be real and still be building a collection
I understand.
inside your Instagram. So
Got it.
I really hate it when there's no human search and it's all,
Yeah.
but that's letting AI interpret your project, which as we all know,
Well, that's a
the
whole other,
metaphor,
yeah,
yeah,
that's a
that's a
whole other
different,
thing.
yeah,
Well,
that's my concern. The capabilities for search are huge, and when I sit and watch photo editors do this and look at thousands of images because they've pulled up a certain tag that's very specific,
right.
and good work rises to the top, but I love watching people work using search on Instagram. It's very informative.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That's fascinating. That's something I didn't think we'd get to today, but that's great.
yeah.
But hey,
Oh,
listen, I could talk to you all day, as you know, but I'm just looking at the time and I'm thinking one thing I definitely want to get in before we wrap up is pretty much what do you have coming up and where can people find you and because honestly, just if I had never heard of you and I was watching this, my brain would be exploding and I'm like, okay, I need a month to research this woman. So
well, for me, I'm dedicated to helping people find their audience, find the right people that are most likely to respond to the work, and present it in a professional manner. So, a lot of what I try to teach is research based in knowing yourself, knowing your project and who the audience is going to be. Because that's the gateway. If you know that, you can set some goals. You can know that a university art museum where that university has like a center for environmental studies and that's what your work's about, ding ding ding, that makes
right,
sense.
right.
So I try to do that and I put myself out there in online space. I'm doing a 5-week online marketing class from Maine, but at the same time, later in the summer, I'm going to do an in-person for 12 people for 5 days with Santa Fe. It's a very different kind of experience. I do a lot of one-offs. I do a lot of things like this, talking with you. I love to be able to share the information for people at whatever stage they are and whatever
Right,
they can access. During the pandemic, we developed amazing classes with La Luz where we had over
right.
100 students from, 30 countries. And incredibly gratifying for everybody and to meet each other and the whole nine yards with that. So
Sure,
I love
sure.
all these different places. I'm super proud of the book. One of the things that I want all of you to know, in our third edition, it's a Radius book now. In the beginning of Radius, they were more of a monograph publisher.
Uh-huh.
They agreed that now our audience is their audience. There's a detachable workbook
Okay.
inside each one because we really feel that people are self-publishing and considering it. And so it divides it into the decision process, the production process, and the marketing process. But the great thing that we did, I'm really super proud of, this is a 16-page version that comes in everybody's book.
Right.
And you can write on it, you can fill it in. I ask tough questions all the way through,
Good.
point you to testing papers and everything. But on our website, which is publisherphotographybook.com, everyone can download the 32-page version of the same booklet,
Oh, wow.
free for anyone.
Okay.
It really, and people come to lectures of mine and they show me their binder and
Oh,
they've got,
good.
all their paper samples are right there. They've added blank pages and listed the favorite books, of the fall, of the spring, and what it was about them. It was the paper, and this was the paper, or they didn't use any page numbers, but they had a list of plates at the back. So you have
Okay,
all
cool.
your resources, all your research in one place. And so I really urge all of you, even if you're a ways from it, that decision process in the beginning is going to force you to think about who's the audience. Also, it asks things like, of course, why a book? Why not an exhibition? Why an installation? Why
Right.
form?
Yeah.
What steps remain in order to complete your project? So we don't assume anybody's done. And the more you know about what you need, the more you're likely to have someone sitting next to you on a plane or a train or whatever, or somebody's cousin that works for a rental car company. And that's what you need for next summer is a rental car
Right.
to hit all the national park, whatever your project is. Write the one paragraph description, write the one line summary. In the marketing section, I ask, who's the audience? Do they gather, as I mentioned earlier? What are the associations that are interested in this subject? What are
Sure.
the hashtag vocabulary for your project? And then who should you be following that is interested in it's like just to
Oh,
drive
wow. Okay.
through
Yeah, no,
all
this is
these.
great.
It's a checklist, really. But
This is
but
great.
understand that the book in all of its editions has never been a how-to. It's about what's possible.
Okay.
It's really, and there's incredible roundtable discussions. The most important change for those of you that have the first and second edition, the third edition, the hardbound Radius, $40, free shipping on their site. We always want to promote our publishers.
Yeah.
Um, there is a new chapter that is all about the limited edition and the artist made book
Oh,
and
cool.
understanding that audience. And Susan K. Grant wrote a great piece about presenting your work to that community, how to network, what's the vocabulary, what is a prospectus? That's the piece, the marketing piece that they need at the public libraries, academic libraries, curatorial libraries that collect small press, artist
Wow.
unique things. So it's very interesting. Of course, it's robust in the self-publishing part. My contract
Right.
section is really ramped up. The marketing section
Okay.
is ramped up. But it's really ultimately it's about what's possible so that you make the right choices. And that's why for me, going to book fairs, looking at all the short lists. There's so many competitions now. Look at all the short lists and see what books and why you think,
And why? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
why are they being
Yeah.
chosen? I look every year at how many are self-published.
Okay.
Airy Photo, for example. How many are
Yeah.
university presses? Because we ramped up university presses in here also. I love Alan Thomas at the University of Chicago Press, and he wrote a great piece for us about that. We have
Oh,
pieces
good.
it's about the state of the state, so to speak.
Right.
It warms my heart when I hear publishers telling me that when proposals come in from artists, they write them back and say, "Go read this book and then come back."
Then call me. Okay,
Yeah.
well, on that note, so the thing that I think was so great about this conversation is I think especially still photographers today feel like they're being assaulted from all ends, whether it's, AI, whether it's downward price pressure. I mean, it seems like it's everything that we've had is slowly being, eroded. And I think what you've presented here is just such a statement of empowerment on how we can control our
Yeah.
destiny and our career paths.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to mention here is Swanee's going to be nice enough to give us a list of links
Yeah.
of everything she talked about. So stick
Yeah.
around to watch at the end because I think that's something you're going to have to go through, and then you could re-listen to the whole
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Can I talk about one thing that is later in
Sure.
one's
Yeah.
career?
Yeah.
Part of the reason I think it's really important to think subject now and be mindful of the audience for your subject is that a lot of our friends are trying to place their archives somewhere,
Oh, okay.
right? And the Center for Creative Photography is 50 years old this year. It was one of the earliest really photography-based archives with now nearly 300 archives and founded by
Oh,
Ansel
wow.
Adams, and just it's amazing. For artists, as Ansel wanted was for artists to have a window on what it is to have a life in the arts.
Right. Okay.
Correspondence, it's their libraries, it's everything. So most of those places are full physically, like
Right.
unless they have a capital campaign to add a couple, if
Yeah.
the building was retrofitted in the beginning to be able to add a couple of floors,
Right.
they go to offsite storage. Most of the, like, for example, at the Center for Creative Photography, many of the objects that came in were old then. Now they're 50 years older. They've had to
Right.
put in some incredible cold storage facilities. So
Right.
just care and feeding of the archives that you wish to be a part of has been challenging. So archives are being much more selective about what they can take. And what I'm seeing is people having greater success and a broader audience, which equals gratification to me, of placing their work of a certain subject in a repository that makes sense because of the subject. Might be
Oh,
a
I see.
university archives, might be a museum of natural history.
Got you.
Just depends on what you've been engaged with. So,
Sure.
so that's kind of a shocker for people that all of their life, their career was based on them being the subject, the artist is a subject, when in
Right.
fact, a lot of dealers for years now have been able to take those pieces and place them in a repository that's all about that, that puts you with other writers, thinkers, scientists. You're the visual
Sure.
art part of a topic.
Interesting. So basically, in essence, it would be like subdividing up your archive
Yes,
based on subject, which goes back to the whole Magnum conversation
that's
you
right.
were
That's
talking about.
the first for me exposure to that broad search by
Right.
subject. But in
Okay.
fact, when we think about where things are, they're by subject.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you are the subject. And it's like how many street kids playing basketball become NBA players? How many,
Exactly. No, it's pretty hard to become the subject. Yeah.
it's
In
hard to
this
become
world.
the subject. And that's
Yeah.
why when I
Yeah.
look at Fiden and it's Annie Leibovitz and Sig Harvey, I mean, we're thrilled that Sig is there, and I think it's great for
Yeah.
photography for both of them to be pillars in their aspect of their career. And
Right.
it's
Okay, I'm
interesting.
going to ask you just since we're going on, I'm going to ask you one last question that we kind of talked about earlier, and I just want your quick answer. So, does the fact that say, okay, Getty owns Slim Aarons' archive.
Okay.
So, does the fact that you could license a print on demand of Slim Aarons for $35 and put it on your wall, does that diminish his value of the artist because it was available at that price?
Well, a couple of things. One is it's not a vintage print.
Right.
You know, if it's a vintage print and there's a gallery that's built
Yeah.
that market and has a rarefied audience for that, and maybe it's they see something that was even printed in platinum that hadn't been on the market before, those have bigger values to a different market.
Of
The
course.
the print on demand, essentially what this is, Library of Congress, same thing. Back in the day, you could order Walker Evans and it would be printed in their darkroom from the
Right.
because that project was part of public domain. So
Right.
that I think that makes for great joy for people to live with work that they appreciate. But I'm going to share a story, if I may. When I had started Swanstock in the 90s, after being inspired by Magnum and calling my friends that own galleries, going, listen, you're missing this market. The artists have all this work that they've exhibited and it's in boxes in the top shelf of their darkroom. It could be book jackets, it could be this, you know.
Right.
And so I was on a panel at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art in the 90s.
Okay.
I think it was an ASMP panel on art and commerce. And a question came to me, you know, uh, the same thing. Is it diminished when you at Swanstock license things? Is that diminished to the gallery market? And I said, well,
Right.
let's ask Sandy Phillips, who was in the audience, the curator of photography at MoMA for years. And I said, Sandy, let's say you just raised the money to buy a portfolio of Linda Connor's work from India. And on your way home, you walk by a bookstore and you see a book jacket that I placed one of those pictures on that, you know, carefully licensed, appropriately licensed, that for which Linda will make some revenue. But it's the same picture that you just paid money for the fine print in the portfolio. How do you feel about that? Is that a problem? What she said, if that check from Swanstock can help Linda get back to India and continue that project, I'm all for it. So we don't see those as apples and apples at all. It's apples and
Okay.
oranges. And I
Right.
and David Travers from the Art Institute of Chicago happened to be in the audience too, and I threw it out to David, you know, the
Yeah.
curator. He said, if it keeps the photographer working, that's what we want, and that's what I,
Okay. Great.
you know. So it was
And it also makes it an image that the general public has seen. Like you think about, and I forget the title of it, but that famous Robert Doisneau picture of the couple kissing by the Eiffel Tower. I mean, it's everywhere, right? But yet you go into a gallery that still has an original print of it. I
yeah.
mean, and it's an expensive print.
Yeah. Well, and that's their job is to protect that part of the brand. Like, for example, Edward Weston's archives here at the Center for Creative Photography, and many of the photographers there have the center handle licensing. Why? To make sure that they are included in the academic textbooks and all, but that the licensing is appropriate. Like no one's allowing putting pepper number 30 on a coffee can at this stage.
Right.
You know, back when
Yeah.
Ansel had a picture of Yosemite on a coffee can, those were in the days when you did your career was broad. You brought revenue in at any time. Now, of course, those are very collectible when that
Right.
happens. But my
Right.
point being, you're protecting your brand.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, they're protecting your brand. You're protecting your brand. You know, you don't want things licensed. You know, and maybe you choose not to give the same work that you are selling in the galleries at available as stock until after
Sure.
the show has had its run. I know with us,
Exactly.
that's what Olivia Parker did. We couldn't have her newest work, but after it had been shown, then we could license it. And so
Totally
you
fair.
yeah, and you'll all find a way to figure out what your ultimate career goals are, how you can generate revenue along the way. I'm
Right.
amazed at how few artists on their contact page have even, you know, for inquiries, you know, or I welcome whatever your tone is.
Yeah.
I welcome your questions about exhibiting the work, acquiring fine prints, and appropriate commercial licensing.
Sure.
That to
Yeah.
me triggers to the art directors and designers. They can't make a Mac mess of that picture. You know,
Right. Right.
you're kind of qualifying it at the get-go, but you're
Right.
open.
Well,
Just like,
listen, at the same time, as an artist, right? I mean, we're looking for what you were saying with the Magnum guys back in the day is, we all need to make income to continue to be
right,
able to hone our craft.
right.
Um,
So you'll all, you know, I encourage people to understand what drives them creatively, what values they place on the work that they're making, and kind of control things. And you set the tone on your website, you set the tone on any social media, you certainly set your tone in a newsletter or a Substack. We're first person, you're talking to us. And
right,
that's
right.
where you can really amplify what's important to you. And I think too few people do that. Like, let us know who you are in a first person way.
Got you. I think
that
that's great. I think that's great. Yeah.
so
Okay.
that's
I
what I
think,
try to help people with,
and I
really
think
like
it's
drilling down what's
fantastic.
important.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, and I hope that I'll see some of you in my online or in-person classes in the
Right. And I
education.
got a lot out of that. So thank you for all that information. And anytime talking to you, even if it's stuff we've discussed previously or I've heard you talk about previously, every time I hear it, it's always like a knock on the side of the head. It's like,
Well,
hello, wake up.
we have to stay on top of not just our subject audience, but also the markets that we're interested in having the work in. You've got to be
Right.
there. If you can get to the book fairs, do. If you can get to APAD, do. Both very different, but recognize here's one common thing. They're there to sell the books that they've published, or at APAD, they're there to sell prints. At neither of those public arenas are they there to look for new talent. So don't be the ones that we talk
Right.
about who would not give up with forcing the book dummy in the face of the publisher. They don't
Yeah.
remember the work, they remember the rude person that didn't
Oof.
recognize that that's not what they're there for.
Ouch. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ouch.
people like,
What do you think, everybody? That was great, right? Swanny is the bomb. Links will be listed below. Listen again, tell your friends, like and share. Hasta.